The Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be talking about Dune Part 2, which is now available to stream on Max. We're going to be talking about that in full spoilers. Before that, we have our On the Horizon segment, and we also have a few news stories and some trailers to talk about in our On Beat section, which is our news section. But let's get things started with On the Horizon.
On the horizon.
On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so. And we only got 4 things this week. We're going to start things off with My Adventures with Superman. I believe it's the 2nd season is coming on Saturday, May 25th on Adult Swim, and then the next day on Max. So I haven't watched this show at all. It kind of weirds me out a little bit that it's on Adult Swim.
Oh, really?
It makes me expect it to be like a really raunchy version of Superman or something. But I don't think that that's what it is.
No, it's actually like a really earnest Superman show. It's not supposed to be a comedy. It's supposed to be like a straightforward Superman adventure show.
Yeah, but that's returning for its 2nd season, Saturday, May 25th. Then, on Thursday, May 30th, Eric, the limited series, comes to Netflix. We talked about this last week in our trailer segment. Yeah, this is the one with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So that is coming out on Thursday, May 30th on Netflix. Also on Thursday, May 30th, We Are Lady Parts returns for its 2nd season on Peacock. This is the one about a group of Muslim girls that start a band. I watched the first season. It was funny, enjoyable, perfectly fine, but I didn't think we were ever getting a 2nd season. I was kind of surprised, oh, we're getting a 2nd season? Okay, cool.
Right.
It's one of those shows but I guess it's a British show, so it's just like an import, So I guess that, wouldn't have been canceled because it's not even an American show in the first place. So, but that's coming on Thursday, May 30th on Peacock, season 2 of We Are Lady Parts. And then on Friday, May 31st, The Outlaws comes to Netflix for its 3rd season. Do you know anything about this show? This is the one that's got Stephen Merchant and Christopher Walken.
Nope.
You haven't heard anything about how they destroyed a Banksy? For real? They destroyed a real Banksy?
Oh, no, I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah.
I did hear Stephen Merchant said recently that that the woke left is ruining comedy. So
isn't that kind of what every stand-up comedian is saying now?
That's what Jerry Seinfeld just said.
Yeah.
Now Stephen Merchant got in line to say it. It's like, what the fuck are you doing, Stephen?
Yeah, and Gervais has been saying it before that, so.
Yeah.
But Outlaws it's a show, it's basically about a group of people that meet each other in a community service program. So they're all arrested for different things. And they're involved in this community service program, and then they kind of get involved in each other's lives, and there's something that has to do with a theft that they're kind of tied up in, and there's all sorts of stuff going on with them trying to hide away from the law as they're still serving community service and shit.
Right.
But that is The Outlaws, and that is returning for its 3rd season on Friday, May 31st. And I had that down as Netflix, but I think I miswrote that. I believe that's an Amazon Prime show.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, that's it for our On the Horizon segment, and now we're moving on to our news segment On Beat. On Beat. As I just said, On Beat is our news segment. We have a few news stories to go over and then a few trailers as well. We're going to start off our news segment with Nintendo has announced the acquisition of Shiver Entertainment. This is a small developer that has mostly done ports. And among the ports they've done, they did Mortal Kombat 1 and Hogwarts Legacy for the Nintendo Switch, which are both pretty competent ports.
Yeah, they did Mortal Kombat 11 and 1 to Switch. They did Scribblenauts Robots game and Hogwarts. So it looks like a lot of porting work for Warner Brothers to port Warner Brothers games to Switch.
They seem to be one of the impossible port companies because Hogwarts Legacy was another one of those games that a lot of people were wondering how it would run on Switch, and then by all measures it seems to have run fairly well. I mean, obviously not looking as good as the other versions of the game, but it ran fairly stably on the Switch apparently. So this is a developer that's basically an impossible port developer. That's kind of their bread and butter. That's what they do.
From what I could gather from their website currently, only games they feature on their website are the aforementioned games. So I don't know like how old they are. Like they seem to have only done those Warner Brothers games so far. I can't like find a definitive list on their website or anything. But yeah, I mean, this is an interesting acquisition for the reason that obviously Nintendo is interested in them for their ability to take games developed for other platforms and get them to run on Nintendo hardware.
Yeah.
You know. So really, you have a team that has like intimate knowledge of Switch hardware, knows the inner workings of the hardware. That's always great to have.
And as a company acquired by Nintendo, they're going to have advanced knowledge of the Switch successor.
Yes.
And since that's going to have similar architecture to the Switch, they're going to already kind of have a head start in that direction.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think this is part of Nintendo's play to beef up the third-party support on the next system. I don't think this is really for the Switch. There could still be games ported to Switch from here, but this is really to reach out to, say, Square says, oh, yeah, we would love to make a Switch 2 version of Visions of Mana, but we just don't have the development resources for that. Nintendo could offer up, Shiver to them, say, well, okay, well, we got a studio that can help you with the port and can get that done. And I think that's the reason for the acquisition is now they have something to offer third-party developers to help them get more games onto Nintendo platforms, especially going into next generation, which I think is smart. I also think
it's a very cool move, actually, because the Switch got a lot of these kind of ports, but it took a while for them to start coming because nobody really knew that the Switch was going to be this massive, phenomenal hit for a while.
Yeah, and I think
people weren't willing to invest in doing those kind of ports at first, and then we got like a number of developers that, like I said, are impossible port companies.
Oh, I think Nintendo is
Rogue Games is one,
getting. I think Nintendo is currently getting unprecedented demand from publishers and developers to have a presence on the next Switch by now because like the Switch suffered a lot from being the successor to the Wii U and nobody having like any real faith or belief in it when it was announced.
And now the shoe's on the other foot.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, I do believe that. There were, like, other things, too. Like, I remember, like, the whole Kingdom Hearts fiasco.
Oh, the cloud versions, yeah.
Yeah, the cloud versions. And Nomura, like, insisted the entire, like, Switch generation that there was just no way we could get those games to run on Switch. It's just not, it's not possible. I bet, like, if Nintendo had a studio like Shiver back then, they could say, oh, no, we got people who could make that happen. For sure.
Yeah. This is cool. I really like the idea of this. First thing I thought of, obviously, I think the first thing anybody thinks of when they hear a news story like this is whatever game that they want to see on the Switch successor. Seems like out of reach. That game, whatever it is for whoever wants it, is going to be the first thing that pops into your mind when you hear a story like this. First thing I thought of when I saw this was, Cyberpunk.
Yeah, Cyberpunk.
Give me Cyberpunk, I'll double dip. I have it on PC, I had it on Stadia, got a refund, bought it on PC.
Well, Cyberpunk already runs on a base PS4.
Yeah.
And, at the minimum, yeah, kinda. It was, like I've said before, like, I don't know why they did that. It should have been a next-gen exclusive game from the jump.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does run, like, maybe, like, that's, like, the baseline we're expecting for a next-gen Switch. I think Switch 2 is going to be a bit more capable than a PS4. Mm-hmm. So I think they could get Cyberpunk running on that really good.
Cyberpunk has also been used heavily as a showpiece for NVIDIA technology, specifically.
Yeah.
Like, every time there's, like, a new ray tracing tool, a new version of DLSS, like, the first game they're showing is Cyberpunk. Using that, like, a new patch for Cyberpunk that incorporates ray reconstruction. Like, when they showed off ray reconstruction as, like, a new feature for NVIDIA hardware, Cyberpunk was the game they used to show it, even though it had already been out for, like, a couple years, Like, it's got that tie to NVIDIA, and with the Switch being NVIDIA hardware, I think it makes it even more likely that they'd be able to get something up and running. So I'm excited at the prospects of that. I would totally double dip on Cyberpunk to get it on a Switch successor. I mentioned that, like that exact sentiment, and somebody else jumped in with Elden Ring as what they'd want to see, you know? So it's like, yeah, like immediately any game that you're like, I want this on Switch is going to be the first game anybody thinks of when they hear this news story. For me, it was Cyberpunk. What was it for you?
For me, when I hear this news story, one of the things is like, remember like when Nintendo revealed the Switch for the first time, and one of the things like they really highlighted in that initial reveal trailer was, oh, we got Skyrim on Switch, we got Elder Scrolls. Like, yeah, they were like really like hyping that up.
So you were like Starfield.
Yeah, Microsoft is like going multi-platform. You know, anything can happen now.
You were like, finally, I can get a Switch version of Starfield and Fallout 76, my favorite games.
Right. Fallout 76. Although, like, I would really hope for more. I'd be more like hopeful for Fallout 4 than Starfield, to be honest.
It would be cool, man. Like there's lots of options for things to come. I wonder how the studio is going to function, if they're going to like take games off the hands of developers and like port it themselves, or if they're going to be like an assistance team, like in the same way, like say, you know, Monolith, their Kyoto office, Matalas, the makers of Xenoblade Chronicles and stuff, they have a separate office in Kyoto that does not make the Xenoblade games. And the sole purpose of the office is to support Nintendo's efforts. So like they do stuff like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. They were involved in the development of those games, you know.
Well, I mean, and those are huge games. And the thing about that is like, Furukawa even said recently, game development, you know, especially as hardware capability increases, is going to get more complex. You need like more people on these games. You need support, and Nintendo has been smart about delegating, providing these studios with support, you know, to get these stuff. Like the Zelda games especially are like these massive games that are like doing all sorts of, have like this crazy physics engines and just doing things that, you know, like you would think would be impossible for the hardware. So like, yeah, it stands to reason.
There's so much talk about what's going on with like in Tears of the Kingdom, where developers are saying like, this is something we don't think is possible on PS5 and PC. And like, we're seeing it on Switch.
yeah, exactly. Nintendo's really good at that.
Yeah. So I really like the idea that that's what I'm saying. I wonder if they're going to be a port studio or if they're going to be a support studio for other developers to help
Nintendo,
them.
The interesting thing is, in their statement, Nintendo insisted they're going to continue to be a port studio.
Mm-hmm. Well, I figured that. I just mean, like, are they going to, like, independently port these games, or are they going to assist developers?
They're like a very small studio. Games? They're only like 80 or so people, so they don't really have the staff to do both.
Yeah. That's what I wonder, because I know, like, Nintendo has traditionally been, like, supportive of third parties in, like, a way that, like, I think Sony and Microsoft really haven't been. And it sounds strange, but it's for a reason. It's because for a while, at least for a stretch of time, they were a hard sell, you know? And to get them to port stuff over, to work on things, they would, like, have developers reach out. And one of the examples I've brought up, I think, before about this is Red Steel 2.
Yes.
So when Ubisoft was making Red Steel 2, Nintendo sent like some of their key developers from Retro to Ubisoft for like a week or something to basically go over what Ubisoft was doing with Red Steel 2 and help them and give them advice and do stuff like that. And so that's what I'm kind of wondering. Are they going to be like a port studio like they are now, or like they existed before? Or are they going to be more of like an assistive role, like heading out and helping multiple studios?
Well, I mean, that's going to be like, that's going to be the thing, like where with the Red Steel 2, they had to send people from Retro, people who knew the Wii hardware, you know, to help Ubisoft with that. And now they got an entire studio dedicated to that. So they don't have to, they could just say, refer like Ubisoft to Shiver.
Yeah.
And say, you know, they're going to work with you.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see like how much is like output they're going to be able to do.
I think this is the first time Nintendo's ever had like a studio dedicated to something like that.
Yeah. They've always just kind of borrowed talent from from existing studios, like Retro in that case, or like Monolith offer their own games, but they haven't had like a whole studio just for that purpose, and I think that's really interesting. I'm really interested in what kind of output they're going to have. Like, are they going to be doing like one game at a time? Or are they going to be helping like 10 different studios at once?
Right, absolutely.
But that's really cool.
Very smart. And again, like, this is like the practical Nintendo. Like, this isn't like one of those acquisitions we've been seeing where like it's an IP grab. Nintendo is buying the studio strictly for the talent. There's not going to be like any layoffs because like that's the reason they bought the studio was for the people who have the technical knowledge.
Yeah. Hopefully they grow it. Hopefully they grow it instead of layoffs,
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way Nintendo operates too.
Yeah.
Which Nintendo said like their difference is, if Nintendo was to buy a studio, it'd be for the talent that exists at that studio. Where like that other
not
companies,
just stealing IPs like a certain other company whose name is abbreviated to the name of a horrific
Why'd
disease.
you name your company after your dick?
I was gonna say their name is named after the abbreviation of a horrible disease.
Horrible, yeah.
Yeah, but that's fascinating news. I think this is like the right kind of acquisition. It's funny, we had so many acquisitions in the video game space and they always feel so dirty and you always get so much negativity, and there's been like no negativity about this because it's the right kind of acquisition.
Yeah, exactly.
Our next news story is that Vision series, this is the series that we already knew existed but knew very little about, that's being developed for Disney Plus from Marvel, that follows the character of Vision. We know that series now is going to be run by Star Trek Picard's Terry Matalas. Now, I've never seen Star Trek Picard. I've heard mixed things. I've heard both good and bad things about Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how that ends up working.
It seemed like some seasons were better than others, from what I heard.
But I haven't watched any of it, so I don't know. Like, I can't like watch it and go, oh, well, yeah, he'd be well suited for this or not. Like, I have no idea. But interesting news. It's another Disney Plus Marvel series that we knew about that we got some more information on. Next news story, actually our last news story before we get into trailers, is that there's an anime. It's a 2-movie anime called Dead Demons Dededede Destruction. And it's like a kooky little anime set of movies. It's 2 movies. The first one's already out in Japan. The second one comes out in 2 days from when we record this. We're recording this on May 22nd. The movie comes out on Friday, May 24th in Japan, the second one that ends that series or whatever. It's finally got announced. People have been waiting for when this is going to be coming stateside. We didn't really know. It got announced that Crunchyroll is going to be releasing the series starting tomorrow from when we record this. So a day between we're recording this and when the second movie comes out in Japan, they're starting to put this out on Crunchyroll, but as a series. So they're dividing it up into 18 episodes. They have a bunch of additional content as well, obviously, because otherwise it would be 2 3-hour anime movies in order to make up 18 episodes. But they're porting this over as a TV series, basically. They're like restructuring it for that. And they're going to do that in Japan as well, I guess. But that's the only way we're getting it stateside, I believe. So this is interesting because we've kind of seen some experimentation with this already. There was something about, The Hateful Eight, I think, either got or was supposed to get like a TV series adaptation where they were going to break it down into like 4 episodes or something.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
And they did it just recently with, there was a movie that came out a while ago called Australia. It had like Hugh Jackman and Nicole Kidman in it. And just like, I think last year, and this is like 10 years after the movie had come out or something, they divided that up into a TV series and added in a bunch of scenes that had been cut from the movie and stuff and turned it into a series with a different name, like an entirely different name and everything. But it was like the same show or the same thing, they just changed the format. So I just think that's a little bit of interesting news about how they're doing that. That's it for our regular news, though. We're moving on to trailers. And fittingly, the first trailer we're going to be talking about is Dead Demons Dededede Destruction. So you got to see the trailer for this. You didn't know this existed until you saw the trailer for this.
No, I didn't. So I saw it. It looks interesting. It looks okay. It's got sort of like a twee art style. But I mean, it's It looks like, I don't know, it looks creepy, I guess.
Sometimes that's the
Weird.
best stuff, the twee art style combined with like something really dark.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is what this seems to be pretty dark. But yeah, it looks
Darkest
really
of dark
interesting.
darks.
It just looks interesting. It's like these kids and there's some kind of a alien attack or something going on and a bunch of people die, including some of the main characters apparently. And it looks like one of the main characters is actually like one of the aliens or something or somehow connected to the alien. I don't know. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on in the trailer. It looks pretty good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Next, we got a trailer for Longlegs, which is the next Nicolas Cage horror movie. You seem to be kind of excited for this one after seeing the trailer.
It looks good. It looks good. It looks really fascinating. It seems like it's a supernatural horror movie, but then like it could also be a psychological thriller. Apparently it's about an FBI agent hunting this killer who I guess goes by the codename Longlegs or something. And then it's like just a bunch of series of crazy images, and you don't know where this is going, but it looks really fascinating.
I first heard about this because Nicolas Cage was doing an interview and they were talking about some of the movies he had coming up. This is like a year ago. And he had mentioned Longlegs and how excited he was for that one in particular as like a horror film that he had been working on. It was like a really big deal to him that he really cared about. Nice. And he had mentioned it then, and I was like, oh, what's that? And I started kind of noticing hearing more things here and there about it. And apparently this just recently screened at Cannes and got like a really good reception, and people are raving, not just about the movie, but in particular about Nicolas Cage and his performance in the movie. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like, you know, the days of Nicolas Cage so bad they're good movies is over, and now we're just getting really good Nicolas Cage movies.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, it looks great. And then the last trailer we got, if you could even call it a trailer, is for season 4 of The Witcher. This is most notable, or I should say only notable.
It's not a trailer, it's a face reveal.
Yeah, it's only noticeable, or only notable, I should say, as the reveal of what Liam Hemsworth looks like as The Witcher.
Yeah, as
and
Geralt.
That's all it is. It's just like a bunch of shots
because
of The Witcher from behind and stuff, and then they
and like above
pull
his
up
head.
and then he turns this and he looks at the camera.
It's really like they just put out there because they wanted to like really like reassure. Oh, it still looks like Geralt. See, we did a good job with the makeup. You know, like okay, like. It's like, yeah, he turns around and he's not Henry Cavill. And, like, the reaction's supposed to be like, what? I read the news. I know you recasted him. It's like, okay, you did a good job with the makeup? Fantastic.
I think what the showrunners and the producers involved in The Witcher don't seem to understand is that the reason everybody loved Henry Cavill in The Witcher was only maybe 20% his performance as the character. And the rest of it was how much he actually cared about the material and how involved he was in that sense. Like, how much he like was pushing to make sure that like everything worked and stuff. Like his kind of role in that sense was what people really loved about Henry Cavill in The Witcher, while hating pretty much everything else about The Witcher. And when Henry Cavill left, it wasn't like, oh no, who can play Geralt now? It was like, oh no, who's going to keep this train wreck in some semblance of being on the tracks anymore?
Right.
And
it's like I don't have anything against Liam Hemsworth. I only hate him. I don't even hate the idea of him being Geralt. It's like, yeah, cool.
I love the Hemsworths.
Yeah, I love the Hemsworths. If he does a great job, that's fantastic. More power to him. I'm not interested in continuing with the Witcher mainly for like narrative like reasons for like
I didn't watch the last season with Henry Cavill.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it has nothing to do with them recasting Henry Cavill. And it was kind of BS. Like it really feels like they fired him from the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to be like disputes between him and the showrunner.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm just not interested in the show anymore. It just wasn't the show I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, season 1 had like some high notes and a lot of low notes.
Season 2, like they really
just
like
kind of didn't really.
They brought season 2, like they brought in like a fan favorite character for an episode in season 2, and like just killed him off in that episode with no fanfare. They took a fan favorite character and treated it like this is just some guy we're bringing in for the plot of this episode.
Yeah, they just made a fan favorite into a jobber.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, like that was like stupid.
Yeah, it's just they haven't done a great job with The Witcher. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
There seems to be just almost a contempt for the material among the people making it, which is not a good thing to hear.
No.
There's a lot of rumors kind of going around negatively about both the people making the show and about Henry Cavill and about other people, like in opposition to each other. These are like opposing rumors, basically. And I don't want to get into that because you don't know what's true and what's not from all of that, but it seemed pretty clear that Henry Cavill was the one that was kind of trying to keep it on track.
Yeah, trying to keep it like accurate to the books.
Yeah.
And
without him, it just seems like, okay, yeah, is there any reason to even consider watching it anymore?
Right.
Because it was already not great.
Oh yeah. And that prequel, that they did, the
Yeah.
Blood Origin or whatever, was like really, really bad.
Yeah. It's just all around not great. It's kind of crazy. First off, how successful the first season was, considering how not great it was, how many problems it had. But then it just took a straight nosedive after that, you know? And that happens sometimes. I mean, look at Lock and Key as the perfect example of that too. Lock and Key went like way off the deep end and just kind of took a straight nosedive, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's sad, but poor
What can you
Liam
do?
Hemsworth, he really shouldn't have gotten
Yeah.
involved in this.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because he is going to take like the brunt of like the ire.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really not fair to him, but oh well.
Yeah,
It's
That
The Witcher, I don't think The Witcher has like much longer anyway with it.
no, probably not. That's it for our news segment, and now we're moving on to our final segment, full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are talking about Dune Part 2, directed, of course, by Denis Villeneuve, who did the first part of Dune, and he also did Blade Runner 2049 and Sicario and a bunch of other movies that are very well received. And
Yes.
he was particularly lauded for Dune for kind of bringing like a very visionary sensibility to the way that movie was filmed.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
we got to see part 2 now. I have kind of mixed thoughts, but I'm interested in what you think. Because I saw
really?
this like in, I think, March when it came
Yeah,
out.
you saw it in theaters because you got that theater pass. What were your thoughts? Like, I'm interested. First off, let's refresh. What were your thoughts of the first one?
I love the first one.
Yeah, okay.
I thought the first one was great.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, so what's your thoughts on this? Why do you have mixed feelings?
So I think there's a lot of good scenes in Dune Part 2.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's also what Dune Part 2 feels like. A collection of scenes.
a collection. Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel
yeah, I can see that.
structurally like a solid movie. Like, the first one felt like a movie that got cut off too early. And the
Yes.
second one feels like a bunch of scenes. Like, they're like, okay, we need to get like a bunch of stuff in here. And all the scenes are great, but it just no longer feels like structured like a movie. Like, I don't know. It feels
Mhm.
like they duct taped 3 episodes of a TV show together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, it does like feel like that. Like they're moving through like a lot of content within like the span of 3 hours. Like,
And it doesn't
it's-
really feel like there's a beginning, middle, or end.
Weirdly enough to me, it does feel like things are flowing correctly, right? It doesn't like none of the scenes felt out of place to me or like out of order.
all the scenes are good. It's just like it
But,
feels
yeah,
like
and I'm
it
wondering,
feels like
like,
this should be a TV series or something, and
wonder
we
if
just
that's
cut
like a
3
deliberate-
episodes in the middle of it or something.
Right, yeah. I wonder if that was like a deliberate choice. Like, I think he was probably going for like a more like dreamlike quality to it. To where like, you know, if you like, when you're dreaming and stuff, if you're,
Yeah.
it does feel like a series of like different scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like wondering if like maybe that's the intent behind it.
What's interesting though is that like Dune Part 1 felt like it had a distinct beginning, a distinct middle, and then kind of a truncated end. And Dune Part 2 feels like it doesn't have a beginning, middle, or end. Like it's
Mhm.
just kind of flows through from
That's
beginning to end.
Right, yeah. And I mean, it's fine. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really bothered by that. To be honest, I didn't even like really notice it all that much while watching it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I just thought like it nailed what it was doing or what it needed to do. It nailed like the themes, story-wise, like the narrative was fantastic. We were really getting into the nitty-gritty of this concept of Paul, like, being a messiah, like a Christ-like figure, and kind of like, and Paul, like, initially, like, rejecting it, and, like, his mother wanting to cynically use that to get revenge, and all this. And Paul, like, really grappling with it, and then, like, by, like, the last hour or so, like, really just embracing it. And kind of, like, turning into, like, this asshole,
Yeah, I mean, he's almost like a different person.
Yeah, he's almost like a completely different person.
They had a scene where he basically almost died.
Yeah.
And came back and, like, he was transformed, changed by the experience, And he's like a different person, like the way he handles himself, because he has knowledge. Like, the process he went through gave him ancestral memory.
Yes.
And that made him extremely powerful and broadly knowledgeable. And it just completely changed his character. It made him a character who was, like, cautious of the praise he was getting, cautious of the worship that he was starting to receive, and the way people were treating him like this messianic figure, into, like, actually being a messianic figure. Which is interesting, because usually in this type of story, the character never really becomes a messianic figure. It's always about them flirting with the concept of being messianic and then not really being that in the end. And this kind of goes completely the other way, in which he just straight up becomes a messianic figure by the end.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is Dune is like it's a critique of that trope, the chosen one trope, which is common in, like, the heroic fiction.
Fantasy, and
Yeah, what I would call, like, heroic fiction.
The hero's journey,
Yeah, the hero's journey.
Brings out.
Yeah, Dune is like, it's a critique of the hero's journey,
It's interesting that, like, in the first movie and then through part of the second movie, Paul is so reluctant.
Yes.
To take on that power. In the first movie in particular, he's, like, actively angry at his mom about the fact that the Bene Gesserit had like, basically manipulated all of the natives on Arrakis into, like, thinking that, creating, like, these semblances of, like, what signs would be of their messiah and stuff, and implanting them. So, like, every time he does anything that was by design made to make him look like a messiah, everybody there on Arrakis, all these people are like, oh, it's like the equivalent of, like, when somebody does the symbol of the cross on their forehead, and
No, yeah.
It's like,
he's a manufactured messiah, like, yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it's very much like doesn't like it, and he's very reluctant, and he just feels like it's this manipulation. And to go from that into him just straight up being that messianic figure by the end. Not just like embracing that as his future, but, like, literally having actual, like, knowledge and forethought and things that he would need.
Right.
He would only have as a messianic figure.
By going through that process with the water of life that, like, the Bene Gesserit, that's what they go through, but it's supposed to be survivable for a woman, but fatal for a man.
Mm-hmm.
But he survives it,
Yeah. So it was, like, played up the whole time as, like, this is all bullshit, it's just politics and manipulation, into, like, oh shit, now he actually is the Messiah.
Yeah.
He actually is the chosen one now, It's like they made up a story about the chosen one, and then it ended up creating the actual chosen one.
Right.
That's kind of what it feels like to me, like Paul's story in Dune Part 2 in particular, more so than in the first Dune. Like, what happens when your made up political story becomes a reality?
Oh yeah. And then of course you got, like, the stuff with the Harkonnens. We got a new Harkonnen introduced in this movie, Austin Butler's character.
Yes, Elvis Harkonnen.
Yeah, Elvis Harkonnen, yeah. He got rid of the Elvis accent in time for this movie, thankfully.
Yeah. He was wearing blue suede shoes for some reason.
Yeah, Fade Rotha. It's like, or Fade. I don't know, it's just Fade, right?
Rotha, I think.
Yeah.
Or Fade Rotha, something like that, yeah. We got to meet him. He's now, like, the third major character from the Harkonnens.
Yeah, because
Dave Bautista's character, as well as Baron Harkonnen, Stellan Skarsgård's character.
Who are from the first movie, so we already met them.
Yeah. We got to see their, like, home planet, though, this time, too.
Yes. Yeah, the Harkonnen, which is, like, in constant black and white. They haven't invented Technicolor on the Harkonnen homeworld.
It's a Yeti Prime, I think is the name of that planet. I'm not sure.
They said, like, they have, like, a black sun, and so, like, Because it's just the way everything's lit. Everything's black and white on that planet. It's funny though.
Yeah, it's a very interesting visual aesthetic that they were
Yeah.
able to give. It's really cool actually that they're able
And then-
to kind of give like these very different visual looks to these different worlds, you know?
Oh yeah. And then another character we meet for the first time is the Emperor, played by Christopher Walken.
Yeah, he's walking here.
Yeah, he's walking here. Yeah, which he's fantastic. Doesn't have like a whole lot of dialogue in the movie, but I mean, it's great. It's always good seeing Christopher Walken. And yeah, there's a whole narrative about like obviously about the Harkonnens trying to harvest spice from Arrakis, and like they're trying to take out the people there.
Yeah, the Fremen.
The Fremen, yeah, that's it. Thank you. They're trying to take out the Fremen, and obviously, you know, the Fremen are fighting back. But then there's the whole political game with the thing where we're like, we find out that, you know, the Emperor like ordered the hit on the Atreides house, had them all killed because, in his words, Paul's father was weak at the end. And the political maneuvering by the Bene Gesserit, they're saying got Paul, but then like they got like Fade Rotha, and they're kind of like switching to, oh well, Fade Rotha could be the guy we put all our cards behind, you know, like, oh, he's a psycho, but we can control him. They start worrying that they can't control Paul, and so they kind of like switch their cards over to him.
Yeah, how badass was it? Because the Bene Gesserit have always been played off as like these just very like authoritarian, like sisterhood, like nunhood almost, you know?
Yeah.
And just very like stark and very controlling and very like kind of full of themselves too.
Oh yeah.
You know, in that sense, how cathartic was it when Paul told the Reverend Mother to shut up?
Yes.
And just
To
put
shut
her down on her ass.
Oh yeah.
Using the voice, you know?
Using the voice of the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
Which knocked her on her ass because, you know, she's
You
like,
just way overpowered her.
she called it impossible. She called it a blasphemy that Paul had that power, because men aren't supposed to have the power of the Bene Gesserit.
He had it in the first movie, but it was kind of weak. But now he just has it, and he's like really strong with it, like stronger than the Bene Gesserit are with it.
Yes.
And he just put her on her ass. And that was so cathartic, because it's just, whenever somebody is that like controlling, you just want to see him get a little comeuppance.
Oh yeah, because she was especially like, she saw herself as like the main power player, you know. She's the Bene Gesserit, like, they're the real power players, you know, they're the ones making the decisions. The Emperor,
Not anymore.
the Emperor, like, for his part, is more of like a puppet to them.
Yeah, definitely. We also met the Emperor's daughter, Florence Pugh's character, whose character's name is Princess Political Tom.
Yeah,
I mean, Princess Irulan.
Irulan. I thought she was also a member of the Bene Gesserit. I guess not, maybe.
They were playing at that. It was kind of confusing, like that she was being like secretly a member of the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
Like she was a member, she was like being influenced by that sect or by that religion, but like not like her, I guess her father doesn't know about it.
They were like telling her all their plans and stuff, so I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it looked like she was like submissive to like the head nun there, you know, like
she's just like a pawn for whichever one, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly. How cold is it at the end? You know, when Paul Atreides tells Zendaya's character that he's always gonna love her, and then 2 seconds later, like, asks Florence Pugh, like, Princess Irulan to, like, marry him and to rule by his side.
Well, that is in particular why he said that to her. It's why, because he knew he was going to do that the next second. So he was trying to say, like, hey, I'm going to do something. Just know that my heart's with you. And for him, it's political. It has nothing to do with it.
Oh, yeah. It's obvious, like, that's political. And it's obvious from her, like, she's not taking it that way.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah.
Well, I think she kind of is. Like, she didn't completely break from him.
Well, no.
It's like she's pissed, but she knows what it is.
Yeah. Oh, no, she knows what it is. She's not stupid. But she's not happy with Paul, though, at the end of this movie. And it's interesting that we end the movie on a shot of a really pissed off Chani mounting a sandworm. You know, that's the last shot of the film. It's not Paul or anybody else. It's her.
Again, it's not really a solid ending. It feels like the end of an episode.
Right, yeah, exactly. Oh, it's the second part of a trilogy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, more than a trilogy, maybe. I don't know how much Denise signed on for, but...
I know, like, he said he would only do Messiah if he felt he could make a better movie than Dune 2. And apparently Messiah is already in development.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Because I know the Dune books go on for a while. Like there's like a bunch of stuff.
I don't think it's
Paul's children play a part in the movies, like as adults.
Yeah. It's like Dennis kind of like signaled that he doesn't want to adapt all these books. I think he just wants to do Messiah and then move on.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that he'd want to. He's too much of like a visionary as a director to want to be stuck into a franchise for the rest of his life, you know?
Yeah, so I don't know if they're going to do all the books or if they're just going to leave it at a trilogy. It really, I guess it depends on what, how well the third one does and what the studio wants to do.
Maybe they'll do what they're doing with Planet of the Apes, where they came in with Planet of the Apes, but rather than remake the old Planet of the Apes, they made like more movies within the continuity. And then they finished that trilogy and the director left, and now they're like starting new movies with a new director and a new like everything, but it's also within that continuity and a continuation. Maybe that's kind of what we're gonna get. We'll get like the 3 from Denis, and then maybe we'll get like another 3 from somebody else. I don't know. Because it takes place over like a very long course of time. So a lot of characters are like gone, A lot of the central characters in this aren't going to be in what would be like another trilogy, I don't think. So it's a heavy mythological series. There's like thousands of years of content or something. So what else did you think about this movie? What did you think about the action in this movie?
We
got to see some of the guerrilla warfare stuff going on with the Fremen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Great action scenes. I just want to talk about like the cinematography of this is beautiful. Mm-hmm. He's gone record saying, he believes in cinema. He believes in movies are about beautiful pictures. They're not like about dialogue so much. I mean, the movie still has like the necessary amount of dialogue it needs to have, but like he is very much focused on like the visual aspect of it. And this movie does not disappoint in that regard.
Oh yeah. Even like the first one was just beautiful. The way they did the spice in the sand and like the way it glitters,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's something I think we've seen more in video games than we've seen in movies. Because it's harder to do in movies because it's actual sand, that you're filming versus something you can generate. Whereas like you can make that glittery, beautiful sand in like, say, Super Mario Odyssey in that one world where it's got like that, or like in, Shin Megami Tensei 5, which has like that kind of look as well, But to like do that in a movie, it's kind of tricky in a live action movie, like a non-animated movie. But they managed to do that, to make the desert look beautiful instead of really infuriatingly ugly to me. But anything else to say about Dune 2?
No, that's pretty much all I got.
So that's it for Full Spoilers this week, and that's it for the podcast. Next week, we are going to be talking about Mad Max Fury Road, because now we're talking about desert content. We're now a desert podcast. We only talk about desert stuff.
We only talk about desert movies made by auteurs. Yeah. So the next one is, George Miller's Mad Max.
Yeah. So I'm going to see Mad Max Fury Road for the first time. Will's already seen it. I was reluctant because, as I was hinting at in the Dune discussion, I'm usually not too terribly fond of desert settings in movies because I live in a desert and it's like I see sand all the time and I don't like it. So I was reluctant for Fury Road for that reason and that reason alone. But I want to see Furiosa. And I said, hey, we need a topic for next week. Let's do Mad Max Fury Road. That'll give me the motivation to watch the movie finally, to right that wrong in my cinema past.
There we go.
And
we gotta
get me set up for Furiosa in the future. So
nice. I'm looking forward to Furiosa. That's gonna be an amazing movie.
Yep. So that's gonna be our topic for next week. So stay tuned for that. Thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. Will is at VoxelHero. You can check out our website, thetotalscreen.com. If you go to our website and open up any of the container stories for any of the podcast episodes, scroll down to the last paragraph, you'll find all the relevant links to our RSS feed, our SoundCloud page, all of our social accounts, everything's there. So check that out. You can also subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts and Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast, as well as additional content, is available on our YouTube channel. So check that out as well. Links within the container stories on our website. So it's all there. Thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.